Hey, I'm Shander, and this is my story of playing World of Warcraft for 12 years. I strongly believe that at that time I learned a lot about real life because you see, WoW is an MMO, right? And this is a game with a community, with a big social element to it. So I had to interact with a lot of people, and I started playing the game when I was 14 years old. So I was quite young. I was much different person that I am right now, and this is the time where people are actually developing who they are going to be in the future. You know, as adults, as big people, right? So it was an interesting moment for pretty much a kid to be exposed to some uh, other real people, and WoW created this environment which felt real, like a lot of these tags were really real for a young guy like me back then, right? Okay, formalities. This video is going to be more of a podcast. Sometimes I might use some footage from cinematics or cutscenes or trailers from WoW, but it's gonna be mainly my face, so you can even run it in the background and do whatever you want. Hey, this is Editing Shander. I decided to make this video off script, and as I am not a native speaker, there will be a number of cuts, misspoken words, some ums, and on many occasions the grammar will be all wrong. I wanted to make this video the most genuine it could be, so this is why I decided to create it the way it is. I still remember when I told one of my friends who doesn't play a lot of games that I really believe that I learned a lot while playing World of Warcraft. And I remember how he rolled his eyes, like he probably thought that I was trying to justify, spending so much time in game, and he didn't believe me at all. But I really strongly believe that I learned a lot, and I'm going to explain. It's part of the reason why I'm kind of calm, collected person at the moment, and why I prefer playing healers or support roles in games even, because when I was 14 and I started playing the game, I was much different person. There was still this element of me of avoiding conflict like in real life. I still think that resolving conflict by the argument of strength is just the most barbaric way of going about things. But when I was younger and I was playing online, there was this factor of the screen separating you from other people. So I was feeling like there are no repercussions to what I will do. Whenever there was something I didn't like, I just turned toxic. And on some occasions, I just engage in those flame wars with other people. And right now, I don't really do that, as it's just counterproductive, it's not constructive, and it's, well, toxic, right? But, the younger me was a different person. Okay, so I started playing the game somewhere around 2004, maybe early 2005. I was 14 at that time. And the MMO genre, as we know it right now, was just developing. There were those RuneScapes, Ultima Online, things like that, but the MMO was like, I don't want to say reserved, but it drew people, the most hardcore enthusiasts of the genre. And WoW opened the gates for the wider public. But still, the early days of WoW, let's say vanilla, was still pretty hardcore. You really need to put in a lot of time and effort to achieve something, which is something that I really liked back then, and I still think that this is the element that we lack in some games right now. I have two younger brothers, and at that time we really wanted to play World of Warcraft. But there was a problem. You see, World of Warcraft used and still uses the paid subscription model, right? So you need to pay each month to be able to play. My mother was reluctant to this idea. Right now, we pay subscription for almost everything. Netflix, Xbox Game Pass, HBO Go, Amazon Prime, and other things. There are subscriptions everywhere. But back then, paying each month to be able to play a game, And it wasn't a low sum for especially people in Poland, where it was 50 zloty a month, which back then it wasn't a low amount of cash to put in each month. But after a half a year, I want to say, of begging and begging and begging my mother, she finally agreed to pay for at least a couple of months of us playing the game. So we started. This game quickly turned out to be an addiction for us, and especially for me. I played whenever I could. We designated this turn order for each one of us to play a specific amount of time, because we have the one account. Our mother was not going to pay for separate accounts for each one of us. Let's be real, right? And we were bad at the game, really, really bad at the game. We were really enthusiastic, yeah, sure, but we were bad. And to be honest, almost everyone playing the game at that time was bad at the game, because a lot of people were figuring out this genre, this whole thing, right? Wowhead was just being created at that time. There was really low amount of guides to be found. But it was about the adventure. And of course, I was bad at the game too. I was very hasty. I wanted to see everything. I was really self-absorbed at the time, but I really liked the game. So let's talk about Vanilla WoW. My first character was the Troll Rogue. It was on the PvE realm Ashun. And believe me, creating this character for 14-year-old me felt like it was such a massive, life-changing decision, because what I am going to play. And I at that time when I was playing RPGs, I played mostly druids or hunters, classes that could have an animal pet, a beast that would help you. So my first choice seemed like I'm going to take druid. But as I was doing my research, reading more and more about the class, I realized that, well, first of all, druid didn't have its own pet. And it was a magic class. It was weird with this hybrid, back at that time people called it hybrid play style. So I skipped to hunter because hunter had a pet. But what I didn't like about hunter, I didn't like that it was mainly a ranged class. Of course, hunter back at that time had the ability to use weapons. Like, there was this joke that every weapon is a hunter weapon, because hunter could use almost everything. And what was really important for me at that time, I wanted to dual wield. I wanted to have two swords and dual wield them. But as I was reading, I found out that rogue was actually the ultimate dual wielding, swashbuckler, this guy that would deal massive amount of damage with two weapons. So finally I settled with rogue. And I took a troll because trolls are my favorite race in World of Warcraft. I just think they look awesome. But this choice took me hours, literal hours, before I decided what I am going to play. And then I started to play. My brothers were playing also. One of them had a druid, and he was mainly playing as feral, the cat. And the other one, what was? He had a shaman. And we were playing. We were bad at the game. We were figuring everything out. We were, exploring. One thing that was, kind of the disappointment to me when I started to play, before I entered World of Warcraft, I was reading a lot about the game. And I always, imagined this game as this big world a game that I played before, like Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3. But I thought, like, there is going to be this dark forest, Ashen Vale, when people are afraid to go in there because it's scary. There are high-level monsters, and it's really an unwelcoming place to be in. Yeah, when I started playing the game, everything felt fantastic. I was just impressed by almost everything. But after a couple of hours, I just realized that there's this weird system of zones separated by the level ranges, which just felt so artificial to me, even back at that time. It's cool for the players because they kind of know where they should go next, but it's very gamey. It's just it takes a lot from the immersiveness of the world, at least for me. But let's go back to my adventures in Vanilla WoW. In my first month of playing the game, and I remember this specifically, I was able to get to level 31. And back at that time, World of Warcraft was more about the journey to level 60 than just hitting the max level really fast and then doing the endgame content. Everything felt like it had, weight. Even trying to earn money for your mount, it was a tremendous task, to be honest. Just, a few people knew what to do in game. Most people were really bad. So, for example, I was kicked out of my first guild that I was in because I was begging on trade chat in Orgrimmar, for some gold for my mount. And I remember someone from the guild saw that and they didn't like it. There was a big discussion on guild chat about that, and they kicked me. And while I was ashamed, I never really took the responsibility for that, like, oh, they don't know what they are talking about. I need that mount, right? I felt like I need everything, you need to give things to me. That was my mind state at that time. And there's an important thing to keep in mind, because this was a time where each realm was a community. There wasn't, anything like hopping between realms or things like that. So after some time, you kind of remember some people from the game. Those who, are, for example, people that really often were talking on trade chat, people who were achieving some great things in game. Those were people that you kind of started to recognize, even in the crowd in Orgrimmar, right? And I say Orgrimmar because I was playing Horde mostly. So, for example, the first guy on our realm or on Ashun to get the legendary mace, the Ragnaros mace, right? Who was, by the way, a Polish guy, Trachupol. I still remember the name, Trachupol. So he was kind of famous on the realm. Each time I was in Orgrimmar, I was trying to find him and inspect his gear, and the young me was like, oh, I was so excited to see all his cool epics and this maze, and I was really, really jealous of him, how he achieved that. Which was something that we don't have in the game right now. There were people who were raiding at that time, and they were just staying in front of the auction house in Orgrimmar, and people were going to them and they were seeing all their epic gear, tier 1, and they were asking, how did you get that? What do I have to do in order to get that? Like, there was this sense of pride and accomplishment for those people, I guess. But it was kind of cool, and the thing that you could recognize people based on what they did on your realm, and you have these communities forming. It's something that was taken away from the game, and we don't have that right now, right? Anyways, so I really like running dungeons. Vanilla Sholomans was my favorite dungeon, mostly because it was an easier dungeon with a lot of bosses. As I was inspecting all those people standing in Orgrimmar with their epic gear, I was really fixated in, I want to get that epic gear. I want to be that cool guy, right? So I joined the raiding guild. The guild was called Marauding Camelids. And the raiding at that time was not like it is right now, when it's like a group of really focused people that need to know what they are doing, or at least that's the goal, because the raid finder difficulty, you have people that don't know anything about the game. And like, not to insult the people, it's not that the people necessarily don't know anything about the game. They do not need to know anything about the game, and they should still be able to do the fights. So like, if you could say, I really hate the raid finder. After hitting level 60, after like 3 months of playing, probably, I finally started to build my gear, build my character, but I didn't really know what to do. Lucky for me, I was already in the Marauding Camelids guild. One day they just asked me if I can come to the raid, right? And I didn't knew anything about the raid. It was Molten Core, and they told me that I need to log in on the evening on that day, and that was pretty much it. So anyways, back then it was 40-man raiding, and usually it was really hard to even hit 40 people. Guilds, after inviting the core of their raiding team, people that actually knew what to do and that were good at the game, or at least decent, they were just filling in the spots. And I was lucky, because after I hit level 60, I didn't really know what else to do in the game. I was really fixated on getting those epics, but I don't know how. I was really bad at itemization, because I was fixating on the quality, I wanted epics, and I didn't really knew the order of which statistics were really good for me. I knew that I should go for agility, but other than that, nothing at all. I got attuned to Molten Core and Black Wiggler. I did some other stuff, but outside of that, I was just running some dungeons from time to time and wondering what to do next. So anyways, one day someone from the guild asked me if I wanted to join the raid, because they were just lacking, members. They just needed the mass to do at least something in the raid, right? So that's how I got to my first raid. It was Molten Core. And they told me, at this time of the day, this evening, log in, and this is gonna take a lot of hours. So I logged in. I was not prepared at all, but I was really excited. And I remember it felt like it was such a big, massive thing to be able to go into the Molten Core and do this thing with 40 other people, and it was really cool. But I knew nothing about the game. I knew no strategies. I was bad. So each time we were getting close to the boss, I was whispering to one of the officers, "Hey, dude, what I should be doing here?" And he was quickly answering me back about, most basic things about the boss. Like, for example, Magmadar was just kill the dogs and then DPS the boss, don't stay in the front. And then after killing each boss, there was loot, and we used Master Looter with DKP system, a short for dragon killing points. So basically, with each attendance and boss killed, you would have those DKP, those points, being added to your, let's say, account, right? And the priority of giving loot was based on that point. So the person who got the most points was first to take, for example, the part of loot that they wanted. So in order to even get something, you needed to accumulate a certain amount of points, which was a fine system. Of course, we have better systems right now, but back that it wasn't a bad system. So we were going through Molten Core, and it wasn't like it was today. Like, each run through Molten Core, I think we ended raiding around 3 o'clock in the night or 4 o'clock in the night. While it was exciting at first, after like a month of riding with the guild and doing Molten Core over and over, I remember I had to put like a special energizing playlist for me, to play music so I wouldn't fall asleep. but it was still really fun and I loved raiding. I still think that raiding is one of the best things WoW has to offer. Which, let's still remember, I was so bad at the game. Like when we were raiding, there was those people were using Recount, the add-on, in order to check how much damage, how much DPS every member do. And this was a 40-man raiding, so there was a list of 40 people. But usually it showed just first 20 or 25 positions in the raid chat. And I was never on that recount log, those 25 positions. I was always lower. I was playing rogue at DPS. I was never in those first 25 people of the raid. I was probably lower than some tanks. Why is that? Because I never used slice and dice. I never read about, what should I do. So what was my rotation, you would ask? My rotation was Sinister Strike, Sinister Strike, Sinister Strike, Sinister Strike, Sinister Strike, Eviscerate, rinse and repeat. That was my rotation. Even though I was bad, they had no choice. They had to take someone. And I was raiding with the guild through the whole Molten Core. We did the first boss in Blackwing Lair. We did one boss in Zul'Gurub. I hated that raid because I never knew what I should be doing there. And I was just confused about the layout. But I like the Anchorage 20. We did like half of that raid when I was in the guild. But one day, after the raiding night, I logged into the game. I checked the website and I wanted to check the DKP. And I noticed something. I haven't got any DKP added from the raid before. So I was furious. Like, just in an instance, I was furious. So I logged into the game and I talked to the officer responsible for DKP, and I was angry and I was demanding. I was like, "Yo, guy, there is no DKP added to my name after the last raid. No at all. Fix this." And he was like, okay, I'm gonna check it. I was offended. How could they? So the guy told me, to wait, and he will check what happened. But I kept whispering, "You are not doing your job correctly. Give me my DKP." And after taking some abuse from me, he got angry and he talked back. And I didn't like it, so I increased the abuse. And he told me, I remember that he told me to wait because he's going to turn on his laptop or second PC, because that's where he stored the logs and he will check what's happening. And I just didn't want it to wait. I was just offended that the error even occurred. So why I was abusing him and I was very offensive towards him, he whispered to the raid leader, and raid leader whispered to me, and he told me, "Calm down and apologize to the other officer, the one that you were abusing for that time." And I was too proud. I was too proud, and I said no. He gave me a chance again, said, "Dude, apologize to him. You're out of line." And I said, "No, I will not apologize." So he kicked me from the guild. And that's how I was kicked from the marauding Camelids. Totally my fault. But that's the first lesson. First important lesson that I learned is to not be hasty, to have respect towards other people, to calm yourself. Always try to approach things while you are not hot-headed. If you are hot-headed, wait a little bit. Give people time, and most importantly, give yourself some time. Because after that, for the rest of vanilla, I had problems in finding a new guild. After being kicked from Camelids, I found a raiding guild. It was called Reborn. And while being there as tryout for maybe 2 months, they quickly realized that I am bad at the game. So they just took me to some Molten Cores, we did start of the Blackwing Lair. I remember killing the first boss, Razorgore, and Valak. What does the Red Dragon? With them, and they quickly noticed that my DPS is really low and that I'm just not good at my role. They asked me to leave, like I didn't complete the tryout. But at that time, I have learned to not burn bridges, so I just accepted that and left. And after that, the rest of the vanilla, I just didn't raid at all because I couldn't find a guild for myself. And just a reminder, at that time, the MMO crowd, there were really dedicated nerds. They were willing to do a lot of grind just for minimalistic amounts of rewards. It was much different than it is right now, because just the bulk of the player base were those really, really invested nerds, at least when it comes to raiding community. So as I was pretty bad at the game, it was really hard to come back to that raiding community. I was writing a lot of applications. That's important. At that time, as they were really serious about the raiding aspect, each guild required you to write an application, just like you would write an application to your job. They were asking you questions. You had to answer those questions, like what's your experience in raids, what was the reason you left the previous guild, and things like that. Everyone had to do that. And as I was writing a lot of those applications, I slowly starting to learn the process and what to emphasize and what is really important. Okay, keep that in mind. I will come back to that later. So yeah, that's my vanilla experience. Let's now jump to the Burning Crusade. TBC is my favorite expansion. Like, it's, in my opinion, the best that World of Warcraft was, with Wrath of the Lich King being in a really, really close second place, but I still prefer the Burning Crusade to Wrath. It was much more polished than the vanilla WoW, but it still required a lot of effort. It was still open. There were a lot of things to do. Why do I think that Wrath is a close second and not first, which most people would tell you that Wrath of the Lich King was the absolute pinnacle? Yes, Wrath was really, really good, and it would probably be first in my own opinion, if not for the fact that it's Wrath of the Lich King that introduced playing the latest patch, not playing the whole expansion. And that's a big no-no for me. To be honest, it's actually the last patch of the Burning Crusade that introduced that. But Wrath is really the moment when it became the part of the basic design of World of Warcraft. So, I started about 2 weeks after release. I played the game. I leveled up to level 70. It was still a journey to that level. Then there were other content to do. But, as everything was hard, it was hard in the Burning Crusade. There were heroic dungeons, which some of them were hard even to the community that was already raiding. So once I hit level 70, it was almost impossible for me, and I was still bad at the game at that time. It was almost impossible for me to get into raiding. And after a couple of months, hitting the wall with my head, trying to get into raiding, I resigned from playing my rogue, and I rerolled on my old dwarf priest on other realm, the Maelstrom. It was a PvP realm where there were a lot of Polish people playing. The Maelstrom was the second biggest realm in terms of how many Polish people played in there. I started to leveling my dwarf. I leveled him as a holy priest. In vanilla, I created this character in vanilla actually, and I leveled him from level 1 to 40 something, and then the rest from 40 something till 70 I did in the Burning Crusade. And leveling holy was painful, it was humbling, because pulling more than one enemies was a fight for life, because holy was really good at healing, but dealing damage not so much. But still I managed to level my priest up to level 70, and group content was actually really easy because a lot of people just welcomed a healer with open arms, and I wasn't as bad as healing as I was in DPSing. So the group content at least was really, really fun, and it was quite fine also. And when I got to level 70, I found some Polish guild, and I was slowly going through the max level dungeons. Then I tried some heroics, but heroics were still hard, so I still had some problems there. But at least, I was somehow developing this character. And there came a time when two Polish guilds merged, and one of those guilds were the one that I was in. So when they merged, they had to restart their progress in Karazhan, because they were both doing Karazhan, but they lacked some people, so they merged. And they had two raiding groups. And as I was a healer and they lacked a healer, they asked me to come. And I finally got back into raiding. Cool, right? It was so cool. I still was really inexperienced actually in raiding, because I just killed bosses, and before in vanilla I killed bosses, but I didn't know much about the tactics and preparations. And in this guild, it was called Atonement. We had two really great raid leaders. One of them served in army before, and he also had this low voice. So he was very intimidating, right? And he required a lot from the raiders. I remember the first time when they took me to Karazhan. First of all, I didn't know anything about the tactics. Second of all, I wasn't prepared in any way at all. So when this guy says, okay, get your buff from food, and I didn't have any food, so I asked for food. This raid leader got angry and said, you are not prepared, we will give you some food, but the next time you will come to the raid, you need to have your own food with the buffs that are the best for you. Okay, and I remember that I got offended that he will require me to prepare for the raid, and I was offended. But this time I kept calm and I was silent. I accepted that he demanded something from me. Then there were the equivalent of today's flasks, because if I'm not mistaken, back in the Burning Crusade you were not using flasks, you had something that you were using on your weapons. Alchemists still did that thing that was like flask for the weapon. It still held for 30 minutes or for 1 hour. It was a massive buff like flasks are today, but it was used on the main weapon. So they asked me to use that. I also didn't have that flask on me, so they gave it to me. And again, the guy said, you are not prepared, you need to figure out which flask you need, and you need to be prepared next time. Okay, I kept silent, and I accepted. What's important, that was the first guild when we would, talk through TeamSpeak or Ventrilo, a voice communicator, right? Thankfully for me, before we started approaching each boss, raid leaders explained the tactics. So as I knew nothing about the bosses, at least they explained what we had to do. And so it took off. I started raiding with the guild. We were doing a lot of Karazhan runs. And I started to actually develop myself as a player, as a good player, because the raid leaders actually required some things from the players. And I knew that they will not, accept excuses. So I had to prepare. It was actually really cool that when the raid started, everyone was prepared. We didn't waste any time. So this is the second lesson. Respect others and their time and come prepared. You see, right now, when I make an appointment with my gaming friends, I treat it as any social meeting, which means if I would go to the bar and I would for a beer with my friend, and I would tell him, let's meet in front of the bar at let's say 8:00 p.m., right? So he would expect me to be there at that time, otherwise he would come there and he would wait for me, therefore I would waste his time. But it's the same with the raids. The fact that I don't see those other people, face to face, doesn't mean that they are actually reserving their time. They are coming prepared. They are coming on time. So if I would come in late, or if I would be unprepared, I'm wasting their time. I do not respect them as people. It's a valuable lesson, actually, and it stood with me throughout all this time. Right now, whenever I make an appointment, especially in my job, in my actual business, I always try to be actually early, like 10 minutes early, because I would prepare to be early and wait for someone than to be late. Just a principle of, respecting others. So from that point, I did a massive, and I mean massive development as a gamer. I started to research fights. I started to research how to itemize my character, my priest. I started to research the future, boss fights, to know as much as I could about them, And I loved this guild. Like, this guild taught me a lot. Those two raid leaders, they were great, and they helped me to actually mature as not only a gamer but as a person. I really believe in that. So yeah, you can roll your eyes all you want, but I believe that I learned a lot. And with that comes the third lesson. If you care about something, you need to put in time. You need to put in effort. You need to put dedication. Especially if there are other people involved. So with the Atonement Guild, we had some great progression. We did the whole Karazhan, we did Grulzler, we did Mactheridon, we did half of the Serpent Shrine Cavern, and we started doing Tempest Keep. In Tempest Keep, we just haven't finished Kalthas. Yeah, we did all the other bosses. And I have so many great memories from that period of time. What I really liked about the World of Warcraft design at that moment was that you have this expansion, which was the thing that most people were playing. Like, journey from level 1 to 60 was still massive. But then from 60 to 70 and the especially endgame started to be the goal of the game, especially endgame. But what I really liked about the design was that you still played pretty much the whole product. You focused on that end thing, and each new patch added something more, some new things for you to look forward to. While right now in WoW you just play the last patch. So let's explain it. Right now you play the expansion, then comes the patch, so you kind of switch to the last patch, you play the latest content, then the new patch, you play the latest content, all the other things are slowly becoming obsolete. The gear is not enticing anymore because you can easier get the higher level gear, things like that. In the Burning Crusade, it was not like that. You still had to progress through all the other raids, and the patches were mostly adding just adding the another tip of that pinnacle of that whole mountain that you are trying to climb, which I really liked. Of course, you can say that most people didn't even experience those things, but is it really bad? Right now, the mythic rides, most people don't experience those also, but back at that time, it was something special around the peak of that mountain, you know, to be able to achieve that. And there were some problems with this design choice, because a lot of guilds were stuck. And I'm going to use my hands again for this. So let's say you are a guild that's doing how to do it. I'll do it like that. So you had a guild, and this guild was doing Karazhan, Serpent Shrine cover, Gruul. They were maybe trying to start Tempest Keep, so that's their pinnacle, right? And there was other guild that was doing all of those other things, but they were mainly doing, let's say, Tempest Keep, Mount Hyjal, and maybe they were even trying to start Black Temple. Because they were kind of stuck in the lower guild. That's the first guild, that's the second guild. The first guild is stuck in Tempest Keep, and it's always in the structure of the raiding group of that guild. There are people that are stronger, that are better, that are well geared. They are pretty much doing all the hard work. They are carrying the rest of the guild while they are getting some gear, and while they are a little bit, they are not as good gamers as those people at the peak of that guild. So they quickly become bored and they switch guilds. So they go to the guild number 2, the guild that is already doing the progress. And so this guild number 1, this guild that is lower on progress, they had to recruit new people, okay? And this posed a problem. Okay, so what ended up happening is that the second guild took the best guys from the first guild. So the first guild had to recruit new people and gear them up and make them learn about tactics, check if they are good or not. So basically it meant that the first guild is gonna stay when they are stuck forever, or it is really hard for them to progress, because they would be constantly bleeding those best players to the guilds that are higher, and they would have to recruit new people from the tiers that are lower. And it could happen also to the guild that would be stuck a little bit higher on the tiers of progression, just because there would be some even better guild, even higher, that would take the best players from them. It was a problem which was kind of partially resolved with this new design of playing the latest patch. But in my opinion, the previous way of designing the game, when we played the whole experience and we just had those new elements added on top of what we wanted to, what we were looking forward, it was a better design than what we have right now. And that's what Sunwell patch did, which is actually not something that I'm against. At the end of the life cycle of the Burning Crusade, there was the patch that added the Sunwell Plateau, which was a new zone, a new dungeon, and a new raid. This new raid was, the pinnacle of difficulty, the ultimate challenge for the players. And it added the catch-up mechanic, which means that there was this system. It was badges of justice, which you would be awarded when you were doing either heroic dungeons or raids. It was just a token that could be used to buy some epic gear that if you had, for example, bad luck with drops, then you would still have some kind of, currency that would stack up, and you could later buy something that is actually useful to you. So in Sunwell patch, they introduced new super strong items that were available through a badge of justice system, and they were way above the item level of the currently available items. It was a good catch-up mechanics because you couldn't gear yourself fully in those items. There were, they weren't a lot of them, but there were, couple of slots you could place those items in there. So you would actually be stronger and you could tackle harder content with the help of those items. And that's the first time when Blizzard, leaned a little bit in the direction of those catch-up mechanics that would later lead to this system of playing the latest patch and, not actually the whole expansion. And the Sunwell patch also introduced achievements, which at that time I didn't understand the idea of achievements. I was just not interested in that kind of content. Now, Wrath of the Lich King.
Child, I watched with pride as you grew into a weapon of righteousness. Remember, our line has always ruled with wisdom and strength. And I know you will show restraint when exercising your great power.
I started the expansion about a month late to the party because I took a break at the end of TBC and I came back to WoW a month after the release of Wrath. I was still in the Atonement Guild. The guild survived through the launch of the new expansion. They were actually starting to form the raiding groups when I came back to the game. So naturally, I leveled up to level 80. I started to acquire gear, to acquire some useful items. It was at the time where the heroics were actually quite hard. TBC heroics really hard. I mean, really, really hard, even throughout the whole of the expansion. At the launch of Wrath of the Lich King, the heroic versions of dungeons were also really, really hard. There weren't pushovers. So I started doing those, and as I was playing, a priest healer, it was really easy to find a group, and in general, it was an enjoyable content. And when I decided that I am already strong enough to join the raiding guild, I was asked to make an application for a raider on the forums of in the Atonement website, and I did that. By that time, most people in the guild remembered me from the times of the Burning Crusade. The leaders were still there, and there were some new people that joined in between when I was on a break, but I was really fine with most of the people that were raiding. They knew me, I knew them. So when I made my application, I asked humbly if I can join, and they agreed. But it turns out that there was one guy that joined the guild when I was not playing, and he rose really high in the ranks within the guild. So there were people that respected his opinion. And when he saw my application for a raider, because he didn't knew me, he wasn't playing when I was playing in TBC with the guild, he got angry that I was trying to, force myself into raiding without having enough gear, which I thought that I'm fine, but maybe I was too low on gear. Definitely in the mind of that guy, I was, not, I was not prepared.
You are not prepared!
Before my application got accepted, I asked one day on the guild chat if there are people that are willing to go, to a daily heroic with me. It was a time of daily heroics or not? Yes, there were the daily heroics at the time, so that was a daily. And he proposed to make a group. From the start of making that group, inviting his buddies from the guild, he was giving me attitude, as I do not deserve to even make an application, and I found that weird. And I remember it till this day. We got to go to Utgard Keep. So we got to Utgard Keep Heroic, and what he did was he was rushing. He was rushing the whole group, go, 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 go. This guy, and he thought about me that I should be able to keep up. He didn't give me time to replenish my mana, and it was actually hard to heal the group that was rushing, as my mana dwindled, and there was, almost not enough time for me to drink. It was so stressful for me, but I managed to get the group, heal them through the whole heroic dungeon, which right now, I'm proud of it. So I kind of proved him wrong. And then at the forum, when he opposed my application, the old raid leaders that I raided with in the Burning Crusade actually, told him to calm down and that I am accepted and that he should calm down a little bit. And he didn't like that. There were arguments, but it was heartwarming that most of the guild actually came to my help, my side. So I started to raid with the guild. We were raiding through Naxxramas, Sartharion. We even started to include some drakes in that Sartharion fight in order to make it harder, because it was the time of the hard modes. There weren't heroics back then. But after a month or two, I was pretty burned out on the game and I took a break. Then I came back in the close to the end of the Ulduar patch cycle, and that Polish guild ceased to exist. So I needed to look for a new guild. At that time, my brother got a separate account for World of Warcraft, so we could play together. And there were a group of my friends from high school that joined us in WoW. So we had, that small group of real-life friends that would play together. I found a new guild for us to play. It was called Asator. I started raiding a little bit ahead of them because they were still leveling, still learning the game, and I was already raiding with Asator. We were doing Ulduar, and then the Trial of Crusader patch came, and that's when rest of my friends joined us, but they were still learning the game kinda. I had to help them understand some things. So we truly started to raid together with Asator in Icecrown Citadel. That would be the second golden age of playing World of Warcraft for me. The first golden age would be my time in the Burning Crusade playing with Atonement, with the people that, taught me a lot of things about not only the game, but some things relatable to the real life. Then there is this time in Asator when I was playing with my real life friends and my brother. And the third golden age for me was in Mists of Pandaria, when I played with some of the real life friends from the high school, and we also met some new people from other distant city in Poland, from Katowice, and we even had a guild, but I will tell about it later. Anyways, that was my third golden age of playing World of Warcraft. So yeah, there were those three periods of time that I remember the most fondly. Anyway, the new guild, Asator, it was an international guild, so we had to speak in English, and we all, raided there as a group. I was playing as a holy priest, my brother was playing as a mage, one of my friends was playing as a hunter, the other one was a boomkin, and there was one other friend that sometimes joined us as paladin, although I think he tried to play as protection paladin, but we had enough tanks, so he rarely played. I don't remember if he tried retribution paladin at that time. Anyway, he played a lot with us, but he didn't raid as much with us back in that time. So yeah, that was our group, and we had so much fun. That was such a cool time in not only my life but in playing WoW also. And I remember on our nights when we played, Ice Crown, when we were on, I think we were on two separate ventrilo groups. One when we talked with the guild, and the other one when we talked between each other, and we were laughing, and it was really fun. And then came the time of the big content drought. The Ice Crown Citadel, it was like 12 or 14 months or content drought, because that one boss raid, I'm not counting that really as a meaningful content. So at that time, because we were kind of bored, we looked for something to do. I turned to achievements, and I started my journey as an achievement hunter, as a completionist. We had to organize our own fun in the game. And what to do when we are not raiding, when we are not doing the most engaging content. I found that, trying to farm new mounts, and by extension of that, doing the achievements was a pretty cool thing to do. It was fun, and it felt like achieving something, like my character becomes better. So that's what initially pulled me to achievements. And since we got already a group of real life friends, we could do a lot of group content. And some of the achievements required group in order, and especially a well organized group, in order to achieve something. Like, let's give an example, the Less Rabbi achievement, where you had to interrupt the boss so he wouldn't transform, right? And it was quite a hard achievement at that time. Also, when Ice Crown was introduced to the game, the Ice Crown patch, as I said before, there was this playing the latest patch, because the design around World of Warcraft changed. With each new tier of raids, there were added a new currency. So the base tier of raids in Wrath, there were badges of justice, then there were badges of honor, of valor. Anyways, there were just new badges added, with the badges of Frost dropping from any content related to Ice Crown. And each content, you could farm this currency and buy better and better gear. So the player base naturally got stronger, and the base at the patch cycle of Ice Crown, the base content, Naxxramas, no one was running Naxxramas anymore. Naxxramas was pretty much a really easy content. Everyone could do it with ignoring the most of the strategies and tactics. That's my only reasoning as to why I prefer the Burning Crusade from Wrath. Wrath just destroyed, for me at least, destroyed the meaningful progression in the game. So we played on and off, I played on and off, and we even met a girl from faraway city in Poland, a Polish girl, and we brought her to our group, and there was a lot of drama because of that, and a lot of that drama involved also me. That's not the story for today, definitely, but we had so much fun as a group. But it was a really long content route, so with time some of us dropped out from the game, And there was definitely a time when I took a break, and this playing on and off pretty much continued all the way through to release of Cataclysm.
But at last, the whole of Azeroth will break. And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
In Cataclysm, the guild Asator disbanded, but all of my friends came back. We played together, some of us more, some of us less. I was definitely the one to play a lot at the start, but we never joined the guild together again. Like, I was, I think, the only one that was still pretty serious about raiding. What was really cool in Cataclysm is that heroics were hard again. Why I say hard again? I said before that heroics were hard. In Wrath of the Lich King, heroics were hard at the start of the expansion, but later, as I said, you with those, playing the last content patch, since everyone was given a really good gear, heroics became so easy. There were pushovers. Like, I can remember doing some heroics in 3, instead of 5-man groups, in 3-man groups. Even better, there were no even mana issues at the end of the Wrath of the Lich King. So I remember running through Adgard Pinnacle. Yes, yeah, that's Adgard Pinnacle, farming the mount from the blue Proto-Drake. However, Skadi, something Skadi. Anyways, I remember when I was, each day running through this heroic with random groups, and I pretty much didn't have to heal no one, so I just spamming Holy Nova, the explosion of holy power from my priest character, in order to do damage, and I was able to out DPS with Holy Nova many of the newly leveled max level characters. That's how how much more powerful my max level character was than their characters when they just freshly leveled up. In Cataclysm, the heroics got hard again, and there was a big outrage because of it. A lot of players joined the World of Warcraft in the later patch cycles of Wrath of the Lich King, so they were used to heroics being easy, and it wasn't like that anymore. And I love that. I'm an elitist, I like when things are hard, when you have to work for something. And in Cataclysm, you had to work, you had to use your brain, you have to tactically, to think how you want to engage even a group of trash mobs sometimes. I really liked it, but many people didn't like it. So there was this tension between player base at the start, definitely. And Cataclysm is also the expansion that introduced transmog into the game, and I really disliked transmog, because before transmog you could say how strong a player is or their character is just by looking at them, because they would wear the strongest gear they had. If they were doing raids, you would see that gear on them. You knew they were raiders and how good of a raiders they were. When transmog was introduced, everyone, even the lowest level character, could look cool if they just had the nice gear from some older, even older expansions, gear that wasn't relevant, so you pretty much had to inspect everyone in order to see what this gear really is. I didn't like that. So as a group, we had no guild, and my friends weren't interested in raiding anymore. So I made an application to a Polish guild called Refugees, a really strong guild at the time. And of course, because I was already good at writing those applications, I got in. And that's the fourth lesson. Writing those applications since Vanilla WoW till Cataclysm, I learned what are the values that are really, really required when I applied for a guild. And writing those applications, the process of writing them, Actually, I think I learned a little bit how to fill in future applications when I looked for work. It wasn't stressful for me anymore. It was really easy for me to imagine what a potential employer might want from me, what I have to, say, and which of my skills are really the ones that are crucial to get the job, what to emphasize in my job application, and what's not that what's not really needed. And in those refuges, here is a funny story and a reason why I told you about my start in Wrath of the Lich King, when there was this guy who didn't like that I put an application to a raider, right? So I joined the refugees, and I started raiding with them. We were doing Bastion of Twilight, we were doing Blackwing Descent, and Throne of Four Winds. All of the starting raids, and we even started to try heroic versions. And when we were really advanced in our progression through this tier of raiding, the same guy from the previous story, the one that didn't like me becoming a raider, who was in this guild an officer, but an officer that didn't start playing the game in the Cataclysm launch. By the way, it's maybe is important, maybe not. I started playing Kata since launch, so I was really early to the party. I was really well geared up, and this guy started playing later, and he came to the to the guild chat one day, and he asked on the guild chat if he can join the raiding guild, and his gear was nowhere near the equivalent of the gear I had when I filled in the application to become raider in Wrath. But he was an officer. I didn't say anything. I found it funny that he did the exact thing that he accused me of in before. But because he was an officer, they liked him, they took him, they geared him up. Whatever. I raided with this guild for 2, maybe 3 months. Then I got burned out. But there is one important thing that I will remember maybe to my last days. There was one day when we had that's Bastion of Twilight, or the other, that's Bastion of Twilight. In Bastion of Twilight, the second boss was called Valiona and Theralion. There were 2 dragons. It was at the time when we had this raid on farm, and we had an awful day. On Valiona and Theralion, we had like 11 wipes, and on each of those wipes, I would die to a very predictable attack. There was a phase when one of the dragons was being tanked, the other one was flying around the room, trying to spray people with fire, and the dragon that was actually on the ground and was being tanked, from time to time, he would face the raid or some part of the raid and would do a cone of fire damage. It was kinda easy to avoid, but this day I died to it on each try. I don't know what happened. I was really playing badly. I was playing badly that day. It's not that I felt badly. I felt badly after the raid, but when I was doing it, I just couldn't stop dying to this ability. And even after the raid, because the raid got called off as we were just wiping a lot, and the raid leaders got angry. Raid leader told to me, "You died on every try to the same ability. Step up with your game." I didn't know what to say to him. How it was really easy to avoid, and I couldn't avoid it. And what I'm getting into is the next lesson. So, 5th lesson. Don't judge a person based on a single day or one occurrence of their just performing badly. Someone can have a bad day. There could be a bad period of time in someone's life. There are many occurrences that can happen and make someone perform badly. Yeah, so that's that. I really try to give people chances more than, one chance. As none of my friends were playing anymore, I took a break. And it was quite a long break because I came back in the patch cycle of Firelands. I played for a little bit, but I still didn't stay for long. I played for maybe 1 month. Then I was away again, and I just came in also for a month to check the last patch, the one with the Deathwing raid, but that was an awful patch. So in Cataclysm I played the most at the start. At the end I almost didn't play at all. But as I was focusing a little bit more on my real life, not playing, WoW all the time, I started working out. I was never in shape before, and I got in shape. It took me a decent amount of time, of course, but I was working out really hard, and the process of motivating myself to do that is actually tied to achievements, because when I was doing the achievements in WoW, there are some of them which are really time consuming or that need a lot of dedication, right? So let's say there is this achievement in WoW tied to the seasonal events. I don't remember how it's called, but it's not important. So you had to attend every seasonal event throughout a year and do each achievement tied to that seasonal event, and do it for all of the events in a year in order to get the grand achievement for doing all of that. And that grand achievement for doing all of the seasonal events also rewarded you with a mount. So as I was, in not only achievement geek but also a mount geek, I was just trying to get every mount in the game. It was enticing to me to do everything, and it took me 2 or 3 years to get all of those seasonal events. And when I finally got them, the grand achievement popped. Also, like, there are achievements like trying to catch a very rare fish, for example in Ironforge. And what I did was I decided that each day when I was playing World of Warcraft, I would take 10 minutes each day to just do fishing in Ironforge, because catching this fish was not tied to skill. It was just purely luck based. The fish has had a catch rate definitely less than 1% catch rate, because that would be too fast, and it was a really, really low catch rate. So I was fishing in Ironforge every day for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, so I wouldn't bore myself out for month, maybe a little bit more, until I finally got that fish. What that taught me was that if you will make a habit out of something, if you will be dedicated in something that doesn't give you an effect immediately, but might give you a reward in a bigger amount of time, you have to wait for the reward. If you will make it a habit, if you will just be relentless, if you will just show up each day, do what you have to do, then after some time you will get a reward that most people deem to be too hard to get. And that was precisely... No, you didn't find nothing. So anyways, and that's precisely what I did with my training schedule, and why I was finally able to train, exercise, work out, and build some muscle mass, and I was proud of that. And that's the specific situation when my friend asked me how I got motivation to work out, to actually get in shape, and I told him that I got that from World of Warcraft, and that's the instance when he rolled his eyes. I saw that he didn't believe me, but that's the basis of why I started. I knew that if you want to achieve something, you need to be consistent, you need to put time, you need to put in dedication. And I guess that's the 6th lesson. You need to be consistent in the goals that you make for yourself. and things that do not give you an instant gratification will give you a gratification in a longer period of time. So thanks to that, from 2012 to 2016, I got into I was in shape. I was in a really good shape, especially 2015, 2016. I was in the best form of my life. Right now I got a little bit fat again. Mists of Pandaria. So I took a really long break at the end of Cataclysm, and I started playing Mists of Pandaria in close to the end of the Throne of Thunder patch cycle. And why I started playing it? Because I stumbled on Method's World First Lich Kill on YouTube. I watched it and I thought, I want to try World of Warcraft back again. So I came back, I looked on my priest. At first I was playing alone. I did a lot of achievements, it was fun. I was traveling to the zones from Cataclysm that I missed, that I haven't done all the achievements or all the more accessible achievements. And there was a lot of sightseeing. The game was great. And at that same time, the paladin that I told you that was on and off raiding a little bit with us in Wrath came back, and he brought two guys from Katowice, two brothers from Katowice, who started playing with us. One was playing on the hunter and the other was the warrior. And they, I knew them before because we played League of Legends. They actually taught me how to play League of Legends, so I knew them. I was happy that they are people to play with in WoW again, and we formed a really nice group together. We were playing pretty much every day. I taught them a lot of World of Warcraft. They were also very eager to learn themselves, so it's not like I was just a big mentor to them, but whatever I could tell them, I told them. There was even a little bit of competitive element to all of that because they started to do achievements. We were trying to see who will get the more rare achievements, things like that. It was really, really cool. At the same time, it was also kind of the lowest point of my life, as I finished the university and I didn't really knew what I want to do with my life. I was scared of doing the adult things. I didn't know how to start. So naturally, I ran and hide in virtual World of Warcraft, right? So for a year, I was doing nothing other than exercise, which is, get in shape, work out, and play World of Warcraft. And in order to trick myself that I'm actually doing anything, I decided to start a guild. Because, we had Paladin, we had Warrior, so we had already two tanks, we had me, a healer, and we had a DPS. So it's a good start. For the basic content, we need at least a group of 10 people. So we started a guild, created a website for it, and I started to look for people willing to raid with us. It was at the time when Siege of Orgrimmar dropped, so playing the latest content patch, so we were raiding Siege of Orgrimmar. We started from doing flex raids because they were the easier to create, and not only was it the easiest difficulty outside of Raid Finder, it was an easy content, and it scaled based on how many people you had. So we could, if someone left and it wasn't a crucial role like healer, then we could just continue going on. And I managed to actually recruit some nice people. I don't know, I guess maybe that was luck, but I got some really nice, good people and some really devoted people also. I got a new set of officers, people that actually knew things about the game and were able to even command raids. So we progressed from doing flags to doing normal. Then, of course, I had the ambition to go into heroics and prepare for Warlords of Draenor. But let's talk about normals. I had a pretty good base raid group, but we needed more, especially since I wanted a group of 25 people, which was a misguided or kind of crazy thing to do because it's more people to manage. But I always liked raiding in a bigger groups, so I was naturally driven to making the guild a 25-man raiding guild instead of 10 people, raiding. So I recruited more people, and then I started to require an application. But as Garrosh said,
times change.
It turned out that people are not willing to write applications anymore, and people who did those applications were like really, really bad. So it was really hard to recruit people that way. It turns out that all of the bulk of the guild management moved from websites to social media, Facebook, Discord, things like that. And it was more of an open formula than it was before. Just do a tryout, invite someone, see what they can do. If they can do what you want from them to do, then unfortunately they will leave. And it took me by surprise. I didn't know that this is how things are right now. So yeah, the whole community of MMO changed. It was, while there were, the percentage of people that were still those most devoted nerds, a lot of them were more casual. It took me some time to realize that. Anyways, we did 25-man Siege of Orgrimmar, we finally killed Garrosh, and I started to think, it's time to take it to Heroic. But we didn't have base for, a stable 25 squad of people, because a lot of those people, when we were raiding, I had to open the group finder and search for like 1 or 2 additional DPS or someone, and people were switching all the time. Someone came, kill two bosses, leave. People from the guild, they stayed, but sometimes we had 25 people, sometimes we didn't. It was unreliable, but I pushed for this stupid idea. And when we recognized that we cannot do heroics in 25 men, we split the group to 2 10s. 1 10 went to heroics, and I took the people that didn't fit into going to heroics and were just raiding normals. But it wasn't the best idea, definitely. If we changed from 25 man to 2 10-mans, then we need 4 tanks instead of 2, and we all only get 2. So when I did the second 10-man group, I had to actually switch for the most time from my priest to my paladin alt, and try to tank that with some random other dude. It just was really tiring, and managing people. Each time I would log into the game, there was some drama. Someone constantly was whispering me, something happened, and it's really draining on your energy and your willingness to do that. Managing a guild started to feel like a job, and this is an unpaid job. And it was hard and it was draining. You start to realize that you need to put out the fires constantly. There are a lot of people, they disagree with each other. Sometimes someone will leave. You need to recruit someone for the spot, let's say for a healer, and you have no one to find. It's hard, it's draining, and if I wouldn't get paid, I would never think about doing, making the guild anymore. Like, it's too draining for me. And that's another lesson, the 7th lesson. Managing people is hard, and it's a constant work. It's a job. So right now, when I have my own business, I'm self-employed, and I don't think that in the nearest future I'm going to employ anyone, because I know that this adds an extra layer of effort you have to put, and right now and drama and things like that. It's not like it's a bad thing, but you need to be ready to actually, make this extra step, because it will make everything significantly harder, and it will make everything require more effort than you did to that point. So our guild disbanded in a way where I took 2 weeks break from the game because I was going to a seasonal job in France. And when I came back, the officers told me, not the real life friends, but the officers that I promoted that were like really knowledgeable people about the game, they told me that they will be leaving. And at that time, I remember when I came back, I didn't want to even log into the game, because I knew when I will log into the game, there will be constant, influx of messages to me. At that time, I would log into my alts that weren't in the guild, so people didn't knew that they were my alts. My real life friends knew, but people from the guild didn't knew, and I would play on my alts instead of logging on my priest, because I just didn't want to deal with all the drama with the guild. And when the officers told me that they are going to leave, then I decided, okay, that's all. Let's wrap this whole thing, and let's start anew in Warlords of Draenor. So the guild disbanded.
We will never be slaves! But we will be conquerors!
In Warlords of Draenor, we played as a group, this group from Mists of Pandaria, since day one. And the launch was, of course, it was full of bugs, problems with lags, with netcode. Game was, for the first 2-3 days, the game was unplayable, but then it was getting progressively better. We searched for the guilds, which right now was much easier, because the Maelstrom was connected to 2 or 3 other realms, so there were a lot more people that that were creating guilds, right? But at the same time, it took away this realm community, this thing that I told you that was present in Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, and especially Vanilla. It took it away. It was much harder to be someone, to be recognizable at your realm, and with such a big influx of players from other realms, it was pretty much not the case anymore. So as a group, we got into one guild. They accepted us as tryouts, and we did high mall with them, and I'd say we did fine. We had some problems, some of us underperformed a little bit, so after some time the leader of the guild told us that only 2 of us are accepted and the rest of the group will have to leave. Of course, I was the one that was accepted, but not to brag. Well, it is a bragging. Anyways, so we decided, no, we are either all of us will be raiding here or we are leaving, and we left. No hard feelings. No, this is how it is. Then we found a new guild, which was called Society of Sensation, SOS, and they communicated through Facebook, which opened this new idea, this new reality, when if you are communicating through Facebook with people that from the raids, you actually see their real names and their real photos, which was like it was a crazy idea to see a real person behind the avatar from the game. So yeah, that was definitely interesting. We had a nice progression there, and I took upon myself to take the job of the guy who was analyzing the logs. I was using the Warcraft logs or something like that, and after each raiding night, I would sit for an hour, maybe two, analyze the logs, and post in our group on Facebook my findings, who failed on what. I always, it's like with my videos, with my delayed review, I didn't post it to berate people, but in order to repair some wrongdoing, some errors, to become better players, those players firstly need to realize that they are making mistakes, and that's what I was doing. And especially as a healer, I could really see who made mistakes when. If there is a phase when, let's say, on some places on the map a fire is going to appear, and suddenly, let's say, a hunter who has no other way of getting hurt gets dropped to like 25% of his health pool, that means he's standing in the fire. So, as a healer, I've got this ability to see who's failing and who's not failing. So I was doing an extra job, but even though I was doing this extra job as a healer in the guild, I was underperforming a little bit, as at that time I didn't put that much effort on my mechanic, on me being a mechanically good player, which means that I would use the right heal at the right moment, and especially since as I was kind of stubborn on playing the Holy Priest, and everyone at that time was playing as the Discipline Priest, which I refused the idea to play Discipline Priest because I don't like the mechanic of shields, which is put shield on someone and forget about that. That person gets damage, that counts as a healing. When I was used to playing healer reactively, something happens, I'm trying to repair that, and not just put shields on everyone and forget about that. Like, to me, that was just brainless. Okay. So I was playing as a Holy Priest. I was underperforming a little bit, and my friends were laughing at the time because every fight when I was, underperforming, I said that does not fight for a Holy Priest, because there were a couple of fights where I was really good. Like, for example, Gruul in Blackrock Foundry. I really knew how to heal that fight. Really well, to be high in the meters, which to be honest, meters don't count that much, especially as a healer. Anyways, I got sidetracked. So what I excelled at was preparation, was being always on time, was analyzing what's happening when, and it was I was always prepared. I knew everything about the boss encounters, what is when. I was really good with my positioning, so I felt confident in refusing to switch to Discipline when the raid leader asked me, okay man, everything is cool, but you need to switch to Discipline because we really need a Discipline priest. And I told him no, because in my mind, if there are other people in the raid group, and there were other people in the raid group that underperformed, I will refuse to switch to Discipline Priest because I still bring a lot of value through my healing and through my preparation and through the fact that I'm simply not dying to stupid mistakes. And he knew that I was a decent enough player that it would hurt the group if he would, left me out of the raiding group. First of all, they needed healers. Second of all, even compared to other healers, I was really good on obeying orders, and especially at adapting to a new situation. Let's say we have an order of using cooldowns between healers, and one of those healers dies or misclicks and wastes his cooldown or her cooldown. Many healers would screw up the order if one cog would get stuck, which is one person got killed. There were many people that would screw up the order, and I was the one that was really fast to adapt. And I could, on the fly, because I was remembering who was going where, I could really fast say, you do that, you do that, you do that, at this time, at this time, at this time, because, well, I was leading the raids before I was used to this kind of things, right? So there's an eighth lesson hidden here. If you are working somewhere, or if you are in a group with some people and there is competition, you don't need to excel at everything. Excel at a couple of things that make you invaluable to the whole project, to your job. You need to stand out at something, be relevant through some means, whether it's the amount of work you put or your competences, something that is really hard to replace, and you will be fine. You don't need to be the best at everything, but you need to be really good at one or two things. And my philosophy in raids was not to ever be the weakest link. And switching the specialization was the only thing that I was not willing to do. The other things I was gladly willing to do. And I accepted the fact that I might get, benched for not wanting to switch to Discipline Priest, which I was okay, and would be a good an information for me, a feedback. If I would been put on a bench, that means that the guild values other members more, which means that somehow for them I'm the weakest link. Why is that? And repair that. Don't get angry at some people. Think why they make some decisions. Anyway, as you know, Warlords of Draenor wasn't a good expansion, and we as a group, and I mean the real life people, we got bored and progressively fallen off from the game. I started to focus on my real life more. I found a job and I finally knew what I want to do. I started to living my real life, logging to WoW less and less until I stopped playing altogether. And my brother even gave me Warcraft WoW Legion when it came out as a birthday gift, but I never even launched the game. I decided that I'm done with the game, and because I have right now, back at that time I had a job, and right now I have my own business, which requires me usually to work in a really late hours. I'm not willing to, if I would come back to WoW, I am not able to rate and play the game on my own terms. And if as a competitive person, if I'm not able to do that, then I don't want to play the game. Especially since Blizzard is a shitty company right now. Because, to rephrase Akama from the Black Temple trailer, I remember Blizzard as it used to be, not the abomination it has become. So, thanks to not playing WoW, I had more time for other things. I still love playing games, but just not Warcraft anymore. And I built a career. As I said, I have my own business, and it's really freeing. And this could be a 9th lesson or my tip to you. To all those nerds that are kind of lost in the virtual worlds, don't know what they want to do with their real life, think that they're going to be the next esports star. Very few people succeeds in being an esports star or things like that. It's a really big risk, and in my opinion, you should invest in your real life first. Get a job, get some sort of a career, to be financially independent. And the moment when you are financially dependent is very freeing, because you can do whatever the hell you want with your free time. Of course, as long as you are doing, things around your house, you take care of your family. But in terms of a hobby, or in this case, a hobby which is kind of addiction also, because I believe that I'm somehow, I'm a little bit addicted to gaming, but I still can't control it. I work a lot. And because I work a lot and I make a decent amount of money, I am able later to do what I'm doing right now, just in my free time, make videos on YouTube, play games, do what I really enjoy and what calms me, It's a really invaluable thing in your life to control this aspect of your life, to be financially independent and then be able to do whatever the hell you want. And right now I renewed contact with a lot of friends with whom I played WoW years ago, and each Sunday we play Among Us with mods and have fun. And it's really cool that I was able to do that. But God, I miss the old days of playing WoW. While I'm not going to go back to that, it's very nostalgic to me. So yeah, I guess that's the video. Hey, thank you for watching this video till the end. If you liked it, then subscribe, leave a like and maybe leave a comment. My question to you after this video is: what are your stories from WoW or lessons learned through this game? So that's all from me. Bye.